Me.
It's going live, and we should be live on all the usual portals. So I'll just make sure,
You've got a red
because
bar up,
sometimes
so it
it
looks
goes live on my one.
pretty good.
Is it showing live on yours?
Yeah, it's all wow. Obviously, I can only.
Yeah. So today I want to talk about. Here we are. Make sure it's just it's public on mine. So I want to talk today, Johnny boy. By the way, how you been? I haven't spoke to you for a few.
Be good. Well,
Yeah.
I've got rid of my cold, so without any antibiotics, I've got rid of my cold. You sound like you're back on form, so that's 2 out of
Yeah.
2, really. Eh?
Up and down this week.
Resilience, that was.
I had up and down this weekend. I had a couple of iffy days, but other than that, I'm on top of the world. So and you've been to Scotland as well, so that's a long drive.
Yeah, been in Scotland, looked a bit of land on the way back, and and then we got to go back up to the Midlands tomorrow, so it's going to be a week in the car, I think, this week, sadly.
All over the place. All over the place.
Exactly.
And on to nicely on today's theme. I want to talk. It's funny because I remember the first time I heard this particular word, and I got really sort of like narked about it, and I didn't like the word, and I've never liked it, and it's procrastination. And I think procrastination gets lumped into generally what people put off, right? And they put off, and then everyone, I'll procrastinate. But there is another side to this, which very few people talk about or even understand, and it's called task inertia. And task inertia is very different to procrastination, because the only way I can describe it to people what inertia is, but you know when you pull your seatbelt, you put it gently and to click it in. If you put it too quickly, what happens?
It just freezes, it locks, doesn't it?
Right?
It simulates the accident, doesn't it?
It will lock as well. So the inertia real seatbelt is about it's stopping you from moving, and that's what task inertia is like. So you'll have all these tasks you want to do, and whereas procrastination is, I know what I'm doing, right? I know I've got loads of shit to do. I'll do it later, or I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. And you put it off and you put it off and you put it off and put it off. And in the end, it becomes overwhelming because you've got so much to do. And that's where this is when you get that cross-pollination between task inertia and procrastination. Procrastination is just the overwhelm of all the stuff you've got to do. It's not about you don't know how to do it. It's about you haven't done it. So you get this overwhelmed feeling, and that causes you distress and grief, and eventually you get through it and come out the other side. Whereas task inertia is usually caused by a bit of fear of not sure about this. Maybe I haven't got as much information as I need. So you get that halt of any progress that you might have because of a fear of not having enough information, or fear of screwing it up, or something of that nature. Does that make any sense to you, John?
Yeah, it's quite a grey, quite a malaise across those two, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I do see them, yeah.
Mix them up.
Yeah.
But that's what I want to talk about, task inertia, because especially if people are involved in a business, they're entrepreneurial, and especially new small businesses and young entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs. If you're going into a business or you're doing something for the first time, you're having to put lots of different hats on. You might have marketing, sales, you might have product development, you might have administration to do, and there's certain things you won't know what you're doing with. And that could be you're procrastinating, or you think you're procrastinating on it, and it's not necessarily procrastination that's causing the problem. It's task inertia, because you haven't got the information you need, or you need to get more information, or you need to be more confident doing it. And I think that's something that I'm acutely aware of in things that I've done in the past. And I'll bring you right back, and it shows you how long ago it was. Is when you could touch wiring in a house. You couldn't touch the mains, but you could probably do most of the stuff in your house on a rewire. But I had a little flat I bought, and I wanted to rewire it, and I hesitating and hesitating and hesitating. And I had task inertia. And the only reason why I had task inertia is because I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I got the information from the library, shows how long ago it was, didn't have the internet in them days. I got a couple of books out of the library on DIY. I spoke to a couple of electricians I knew who were going to come do the connections up once they'd checked all the work I'd done. But it took me ages to actually pick up a hammer and a bolster to start cutting out chasing out the walls to start putting the wires in, because I didn't know what I was doing. But I could have seen it as procrastination, but it wasn't. It was task inertia. I mean, have you ever been in that situation where you've had task inertia?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have called it task inertia. I'd have probably called it. I'd have put it down and see. This is where it's going to be a really complicated. Because I'm going to add a third one to you, and
Oh,
I'll put it like I'll put it as an overwhelm. So I'll be like, there's just so many things. Like, it's like, some days I'll be like, and we've all had it. You walk in your office, you get in the office early, but the phone just starts, and the minute you're in the office, and I'm not talking like 9 o'clock. I'm talking like 8:05. People are ringing you, and it's just call after. It's almost like planes landing at Heathrow. I mean, what, they 2 minutes every 2 minutes. If you're flying around, if you're bombing around the motorway by Heathrow, they're just stacking themselves up. And it's just like, and the problem is, normally if you're taking a phone call for 20 minutes, that then gives you action points, doesn't it? So that's loading on top of your all very sort of overwhelming day, and you're just thinking, oh my word. And I mean, I'll just be like, right, it sounds really bad, isn't it? But I'm not doing any brain surgery. This is not that, no one's dying. I can just basically just go and have a walk around the block and just, take the phone with me, put some music on, and then just have a 20-minute walk around the block. So I think you just I have to just reset myself. But put it into perspective. Another one I heard a while ago is someone just, I think you go on YouTube, don't you? You just zoom out from the Earth and you just go out to the galaxy, and it just shows how insignificant we are in the overall scheme of things. So I heard someone using that. I think it was Alex Hormozy uses that. He just basically says, "Oh, just whenever I get like a day like that, I just basically just zoom out as if like I'm like in orbit looking down on Earth, and it just makes the problem insignificant." But yeah, no, I just think there's definitely that sort of analysis paralysis goes on.
Yeah, I think
And I
people
suppose,
do get they do get that, and I think I was looking for a label to put it on, task inertia, because I think procrastination gets a bit of a bad rap, really, because it gets lumped into everything. I know it's because of this I'm procrastinating. It's not necessarily procrastination, and that's the point I'm trying to make, really. And I think you're right. The overwhelm can cause task inertia in its own way, because you've got this. What do I do next? And I tend to, if I'm not sure of something, I just get a piece of paper and say, okay, what do I need to do first? And just wind it back a bit, because there's a process of what you do. I remember years and years ago, I had a conversation with a guy who wanted to start his own business, and he's saying, "Yeah, I've got to go and do a limited company, and I've got to speak to a solicitor, and I've got to go and get this and get that." And I said, "Yes, that's fine, but unless you've got a customer, there's no point. You've got to get good at getting customers, get good at doing that first, and then the rest of it follows." And it does, and some people like to be organized and do it all up front and get ready. That's fantastic. But I think there's so many hats you've got to wear. You've got to ask yourself which one's the most important one, and focus on that to start with. The rest will come. The rest of it will fall into place, if that makes any sense. But what is the most important thing I need to do in order to get something done? So, walking around a block and taking time out, or looking at Google Earth, fantastic, wonderful ideas. I tend to, if I'm having that sort of day, I tend to think, well, it's not that bad, and always look at something that's happened in my life and go, compared to that, it's not that much of an issue. I can deal with this, and take some deep breathing. I'm a great believer in breath work, and then refocusing. Or sometimes I just sit and put some headphones on and put some Hertz music on for concentration or something, you know, just to break the pattern of, oh shit, I'm overwhelmed at the moment, you know.
Yeah, I suppose the key point is having a technique that works for the individual, isn't it? Because
Mm,
coming back to your task inertia is, if you're getting sort of like a overwhelm and you're getting like a brain fog, then that is I can't say it, but deliberating. It's that word, the one that's really complicated to say.
debilitating,
So
debilitating.
debilitating. That's the one. So
Yeah.
so you could have had the skill set to solve the problem, but because you're getting this brain fog, that's
Mm,
removed that skill set from your armory. That's
mm,
causing this paralysis that
mm.
we're talking about. So I think, yeah, it's definitely trying to. It's trying to have have that moment where you've got that helicopter view when you can look down and say, what's stopping me, and how can I solve it, and is it
Your walk around the block analogy is probably quite an interesting one because that's a state breaker. And I think there's, if you can break your state of that brain fog, whether it's 20 minutes walking around the block or doing some sort of technique to break you and snap you out of it, then that helps. And then with task inertia, I think it's getting the right information from the right people as well, and reaching out and speaking to some people or doing some research to help you uh, get confidence with doing that next task, because it can be fucking daunting out there, right? If you've never done marketing before, if you've never done, I was talking to a few friends of mine that they didn't want to do any marketing on emails or they didn't want to do marketing on videos, and I said, just go and do, that doesn't matter, just go and do something, go and do one, even if you practice it and send it to your best friend. Just do a video or just send a few emails out to a few people just to see what comes back, because the fear factor can create that task inertia of, oh,
Mm,
judge me, or they're not going to like what I'm sending them, or they're not going to watch what I'm sending out. And I think that can cause a lot of overwhelm in people because they're scared. There is
mm,
a certain amount of fear, and people are scared to do things, especially new things. You know,
yeah.
we've all done it, and I always look at it, uh, wind it right back to the driving analogy of unconscious incompetence.
Mm,
Where you're unconsciously aware you can't drive to start with, and you're incompetent, and then you become consciously aware that you can't drive, and then you start to drive, and you're incompetent but conscious, and then you become conscious competent, i.e. you can drive now and you're still conscious of it. That's when you're taking your test, and once you pass your test you become unconscious competent. And we all want to get to that point of being unconscious competent, but it takes time, it takes practice, it takes knowledge, it takes skills. You've just got to work out what you need to get in order to get to that next level or to overcome that task inertia. And then once you get that, then you can get to that conscious competent part, so eventually you can get to unconscious competence.
yeah, no, 100%. No, it's an interesting one, and also I think there's a tendency of the world we live in, where there's a tendency to feel that you're always on tap, and you just have to remind yourself. There's a lot of people now. I mean, you can, if you're not careful, you can get in front of your desk, in front of your computer, and before you know it, you look up and it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, because
Mm.
it's just you're doing different tasks. But
Yeah, I
I
did. I
think
did that today with Formula One with Max's win the weekend. But I got really stuck into that and looking at all the stats. But no, I get it. It's easy to get lost online. And the thing is, that's about managing your apps. It's managing your time.
mm,
I've got something here which I tend to write with, which is remarkable, which is a one of these
mm,
pen-based
one of
writing.
these.
That's it.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't go online. I.e., doesn't you've got no distractions when you're
Mm,
writing it,
yeah.
and it's managing them distractions by taking off the notifications on your phone. Because I know I was at a little barbecue a couple of weeks ago, a mate's birthday. Just a load of pals there, and they're all on their phones with different apps, pings, dings, and they're all these notifications are getting their attention, whereas I don't even have my email pings on my phone, because I always wait and then deal with my emails when I want to deal with them, as opposed to just having them ping in, unless I'm specifically waiting for an email to come through because of something that I'm working on. I don't want that distraction, and I think that's about managing it. You know, it's because it's an overwhelming enough life without this modern world that we live in, that everyone's trying to, because, you know, if you think about it, your attention is the new gold, really.
Well, yeah, no, 100%. And also, I mean, email is still, it's just misconstrued, isn't it? Email is non-urgent communication.
Mm,
You
mm.
know, it's just that a lot of people expect it to be almost instant. Whereas, you know, at the end of the day, if you want to get hold of someone, you'll just ring them, won't you? I think I was listening to something
Yeah, but
on the radio the other day.
look how the apps, right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
put you in, right? So WhatsApp's a classic example, where Facebook, a Messenger, they're all the same. You can see someone typing a message, or if they've read it, or if they've not. I mean, the smart people turn off all the notifications, and they don't have the ticks going blue, so you don't know if you've read them or not, right? So that, but I see people looking on their phone, waiting to see if that person's going to reply. If they're going to wait for a reply from me, mate, they might be waiting a long time, because my daughter says, "Didn't you get my text?" Yeah, I'll get your text. Why don't you? I'll reply when I'm ready. She's learned, but it's they don't help you, because they know what's going to make you tick. They know that dopamine hitting your head when you see them ticks go blue and someone's typing a response to your message. So it's understanding that they're manipulating you. If you understand that, then you can deal with it.
Yeah, and I think it's just taking that, like you say, it's just being it's to have the power to walk away from that, isn't it? It's like, I was listening to a radio thing the other day, and Joanna Lumley was on there, and she's just like, I don't have a mobile phone. That's it. I've never, you know, it's just like, she's like, I hate the idea of it. At the end of the day, I have a house phone. If people want to get hold of me, they'll ring the house phone.
What's that?
And she, you know,
I haven't even got one. I haven't even got internet. I've got satellite internet, and I haven't even got a landline.
Wow, yeah, but it is. I mean, it's a lot of people on here that they won't remember a world without a mobile phone, will they? And I mean, I remember when I was working for BT at the time, we had to find addresses in the dark with a torch, and you had no sat nav, no nothing. You know, I mean, it's just
When did
like,
you get your first mobile phone? What year?
I reckon that was 81. It was one of those banana phones. Remember with orange sort of
They
slidey
weren't
thing.
81s, mate. They were 90s.
Were they 90s? But perhaps it's
Yeah.
90 then. 1990, yeah. 90,
The
yeah.
adoption of mobile phones didn't really hit until the latter 90s, when it really took off. But I remember having a mobile phone, and I always used to look at it, and this shows you how long. This was 1994, 95, and I remember having bills at £400-500, because they used to charge you £1 a minute. Do you remember? And this is the
Well,
reason
you used to
why
get
the adoption didn't take hold until latter 90s, when all of a sudden it became cheaper, because they charged by the second rather than the minute. Because they used to literally charge you for the minute, even if you connected for 2 seconds. For the pound, it used to be £1 a minute. And I remember my phone, between £400 and £500 a month it used to be. And I used to think to myself, as long as it's not any more 10% than my business income at the time, then I was okay. So the early adoption would have been sort of, I think I got mine in 94, original one.
Well, I think the first ones were those big things where they had a massive battery pack, didn't they?
Yeah,
So they weren't even like that. They weren't even that.
Well, if you look at Gordon Gecko, he's got a Motorola 8500X, which was a brick with an aerial on it, and that was in 1985. So, and they were expensive then in the 80s, mid 80s.
It was almost like a communication for people that like you say, either had the money or for people in jobs where they're on a site and there was no mobile phone signal and they needed to talk to an employer or
Mm.
someone. But yeah, it was almost
I
like,
know what
yeah,
you mean. Yeah. So I think yeah.
mm,
So anyway, going back to our task inertia, which we've gone off track a bit. So there's numerous things you can do, because obviously we're realizing that we've got this bombardment of modern technology in our way. If you're finding yourself in that situation with task inertia, go and get some help with the information that you require, whether it's switching everything off and searching for what you need to search for, or do some research, or try and develop the skills to enable you to be able to take them tasks on. And then because usually task inertia is something to do with there's a lack of something, or there's a fear of something, as opposed to the procrastination, which is just I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, and then all of a sudden you still got the same feeling, which is overwhelm, right? Both of them got the same feeling, but they get the same rap. But it's understanding how you can deal with that, because we've especially if I'm sure you're still learning in your business. I'm still learning in certain things in
I
mine.
don't,
I'm still don't know everything,
yeah,
so there's always
no,
something to learn, isn't
100%.
there?
Yeah, you stop learning when you die, don't you? Sadly, or positively. I mean, I think
Yeah,
you constantly, every day is a learning day, isn't it? You want to be learning anyway. At the end of the day.
yeah.
Um, but no, I think, I mean, the other thing I suppose is on procrastination is like that would sort of like that would couple against the sort of like eat the frog for breakfast type of thing, isn't it? If you know you're procrastinating, then having a routine where you think, right, I know I was out somewhere a while ago as a networking event, and the person's got a couple of frogs on her computer, and
Mm.
that just reminds her, eat the frog for breakfast. What's the two tasks that I need to do before anything else, just that I just keep putting off if I didn't have these two frogs on my computer. And I thought that was a really good idea.
So, so,
Just a
so,
visual reminder.
clarification: you don't actually go and get frogs to put on your computer, but the frogs
No, say they
represent the
jump.
biggest thing
You
that
know
you need
why?
to do.
Because you know why you don't put frogs on your computer? So they hop off, wouldn't they? So you have to have a
No,
stuff
the point I'm
ones.
trying to make is I want to make sure that people are aware what you meant by the big frogs are the biggest,
Yeah,
hardest things on your list to do. Just get them out of the way.
yeah, yeah. But she actually had soft toy frogs just to reinforce the message of eat the frog for breakfast, which I thought was a really good thing. So you walk in the office, first thing you see is your frogs, just a psychological reminder. Let's do the two tasks that I don't really want to do, but I know I feel better when I've done them. I thought that was a really good idea.
There's another way I used to do this. Is that I make it ridiculous. So say for instance, when I was really cracking on back in the sort of latter 90s trading, I used to have to make so many calls a day, go and see so many agents, see so many houses, make so many offers, blah 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 blah. So it got to a stage where I had a bit of overwhelm. Do I have to do this today? So I'd make it ridiculous and say, look, as long as I call one agent. But I couldn't
Mm,
just call one agent, because that would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Just one call a
yeah.
day. So once you call one agent, actually you might as well call two, and then before you know it, you've called 10, or you might have called 15,
Mm,
and so it's that gets you to start the process. So if you've just as well as the opposite direction is do the big things. Sometimes you can make it the opposite, which is the ridiculous, which is okay, I can do one, and just to get yourself
yeah.
moving, because just getting yourself moving sometimes can be hard.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely. And then, like you say, you get in the flow. And once you're in the flow, you don't want to stop.
Yeah.
So,
And
mm,
so all these things, these little techniques can help you, and it really does depend on someone's personality and the way we know ourselves, we know what makes ourselves tick, or we should do. If you don't, then find out, and then you can
mm,
adapt the strategy, or you can adapt the technique to suit you, to give you that extra push and that extra slap, if you want. I always look at it as a metaphorical slap. We used to have something many years ago when I was an estate agent manager. We used to have the Ribsy pep talk in the morning. So I used to go in there and say, right, okay, who's got an issue? And we used to have a little pep talk to get up to speed, because I had lots of energy and always my glass is always half full, not half empty. And then Ribsy pep talks used to set people up for the day, because sometimes you need that, sometimes you need a pep talk, or even if it's just speaking to someone who's in a similar position or who's been in a similar position, who's got out of it the other side.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely a finding the way through, isn't it? But I mean, it's just hard, isn't it? It's trying to frame it that, often the fear is worse than the actual event, really.
Yeah, and I think
A lot of
that is the key. And I think there's another one I tended to do. I don't know if you ever done it, but I did a UPW with Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, and he did the firewalk. And in order to get you to walk across the hot coals, he had to condition you, and that condition is he got you to do a power move. So you sort of make a power move and make a noise. And even today, after I did that in 2008, I can still literally snap back to that point of doing my power move, and it breaks the state of whatever I was in at that time and gets me in a really empowering state. So sometimes we can utilize things like that. And the great thing is today, you can look online. If you want to find some sort of state breaker, just go on YouTube, and there's probably one of Tony Robbins's techniques that you can literally do straight away to snap yourself out of something,
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty. I mean, YouTube's just a massive library, isn't it now? So you just got to find something and then just practice it, and then it'll work for you, and away you go. So there's an abundance of knowledge out there, isn't there? So
I'm constantly searching shit. I mean, it infuriates some people with me, because there's someone saying to me, "Oh yeah, so and so and so and so." You sure about that? And I'll be Googling it while they're talking to me to make sure that the information they're giving me is correct and accurate, because it's easy just to rely on someone telling you something. But the great thing about today's life, it's a massive encyclopedia if you know what to look for. We've had that conversation before, but that's for another time as well. All right. Okay. Well, so just to summarize, it's, if you are suffering from either task inertia or procrastination, they're very similar. But if it's task inertia, get the information you need, or get the confidence you need to start the task. And if it's procrastination, snap yourself out of it, for goodness sake. Eat that frog and just get on with it.
Yeah,
exactly. If you want a load of frogs on your desk, don't come near me, because I don't like them.
No. Okay. Well, that's fine. They're nice, happy characters, smiley characters. But there we go. But no, whatever works for you, isn't it? Really. So
it's fine.
It's certainly worth having some memory jogs, isn't it? I think that's the thing, isn't it?
Make sure you're accountable, because this is if you listen to this, it's an accountability Monday. We want to make you accountable. Start.
Yeah, just try them.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, right.
Try it and see what's worked for you. Right, and we'll speak to you next week. Next week, Monday.
See you later. Take care.
Have a good week. Bye. Catch you later. Bye bye.